Welcome to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show, where we explore everything dealing with short and midterm rental investing as well as life. I am your host, Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, and today I have an extra special guest with us. Dr. Jen is a dentist turned coach who helps high achievers transition from burnout to balance, creating emotional, time, and financial freedom. So I'm super excited to have her with us. Dr. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very, very much. And I think I had shared this with you when we spoke, but my husband is a real estate agent, so I've got that extra level of
Yes.
awareness about what your what your audience might be interested in or up to. But I am so excited to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's dive right in. So,
Okay.
Jen, your journey from burnout to where you are now is just absolutely inspiring.
Thank
When
you.
we had the opportunity to connect, can you share a moment when you realized that you were on that path to burnout and what really sparked your decision to make some changes?
Yeah, well, there's been multiple moments, I think, as there are for most people, but the most the moment that jumps out the most in my mind to me is when I was about 28. I finished dental
Mm,
school when I was 26. I finished residency when I was 27. So this is only a year into practice. And the external things were just like check, check, check. Like I got the degree, I did the program, the residency program, moved to got married, bought the house. We actually paid off my student loans in about 2.5 years, which is unheard of. I had almost $200,000 worth of student debt, but we had this plan and we lived minimally and all these things. And there was just this emptiness. And I got to this point where it was like the external things, like I know I can set my sights on something and do it. But the internal part of me, I was struggling with a lot of gut
mm.
issues and health issues. And I sometimes felt very insecure or overwhelmed, and other times felt fine, didn't really get it. That was one pivotal point for me. And then 2020, the pandemic, having a 1 year old, was another peak point of burnout for me. And there were some key transitions that came out of both of those.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said you started to have some health issues. So,
Yeah.
we know that the body keeps score,
Yes.
right? So,
Emphatically, yes.
yeah, 100%. So, could you walk me through what that next step was for you? Like, how did you approach finding help for yourself, which has culminated to
To
finding help
this.
for others?
So there's kind of a couple different branches of that. One is the financial and time freedom part. My husband is
Mm,
European. He grew up in northern
mm,
Germany and he came to the States on a tennis scholarship. And we met when we were 23 and 24, and we had this vision of time freedom to be able to
mm.
live meaningfully the way we wanted to in this country, but see our families as much as possible. So we were on this plan from an early age of kind of buckling down, becoming debt free, looking for ways to have other sources of income. So that's part of it. Another part, though, the emotional part, I had this awareness even then that it wasn't just going to be time and money that was going to solve my problems. There was
Mm.
some deeper, like, self worth type of stuff going on, or perhaps like just some patterns, some beliefs I had that maybe weren't healthy. And I'm going to just briefly take you back to my teenage years, if that's okay, because I think that
Yeah.
ends up being a really important part of this journey.
Yes. Yes.
I experienced severe seasonal depression growing up in
Mm,
upstate New York, and I didn't have the vocabulary for it. Mental health wasn't talked about, but there was this awareness I had at a very young age that our internal state completely transforms how we perceive the outside world. Because my internal state would radically shift for part of the year and then kind of lift again. And then I also had this experience when I was about 15 that I've only started to talk about recently, but it happened in the summertime when I generally felt better. And I now contextualize that as a somewhat of a spiritual, expanded, higher state of consciousness where the normal mental chatter that we experience as humans that makes
mhm,
us
mhm.
like,
Yes. Yeah.
ruminate all the things, like especially as high
Yes.
achievers, it can take on a form that
Yes.
feels good or tricks us into thinking it's good, but it's ultimately just this perhaps frantic energy that just dissolved. It just completely melted away, and
Mhm.
I was in this pretty effortlessly peaceful headspace that was not
Mm.
affected by external things for about probably 6 to 8 weeks. And I didn't give it a lot of thought. I mean, I was 15, and I kind of wrote it off as like maybe that was the last wave of like the way the mind works in childhood. playing out. But then as an adult, once I kind of hit this wall when I was about 28, I met a woman around the same time who was able to help. She was a holistic therapist who I've now seen for many years, but she was able to give me some context and guidance into how to learn about inner work and transforming our own consciousness and other people who had experienced things like I did. It's given me a roadmap to help get back to that really balanced place and know how to return to it when life throws curveballs, because that's life.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So I love this conversation. I appreciate it because in this podcast, we're typically talking about money freedom. We're talking about time freedom, and you're bringing this unique aspect, which is the emotional freedom. So, what role do you feel that emotional freedom play in achieving the other two, for instance, the time freedom and the money freedom?
I love this question. And even though I didn't know you were going to ask it like that, I feel like notes I jotted down are going to perfectly like answer this. For a while so I've only been creating content publicly since April of this year, and I'm so glad I finally started to, because it's helped me hone my messaging, explain it to people better. But originally I was
Yeah,
just saying, kind of this sequential thing, like you create the financial freedom, which creates the time freedom, and then you have this time freedom to like work on your stuff. But that's
yeah.
not really, yes, that is great. And it is great if you can like step back and have this time to evaluate things. But in reality, the emotional freedom piece, if you can put that at the beginning and all the way through, the other stuff, you're
Yes,
not destination based. You are truly grounded in the process in a way that it's enjoyable.
yes,
But your
yes, yes.
self-worth is there. Your ability to detach from work or from outcomes is there. So yeah, I don't know if that, but it is the inner work piece, the emotional piece. It beginning, middle, all of it, it grounds you in the present in a way where you're in the journey, and the outcome is less
But
relevant.
Dr. Jen, but how? Because if we go back to the mental chatter, right?
Yes.
Many of us, we associate our self-worth with that
Yeah.
productivity. What strategies do you think we could use to start breaking free from that?
Okay, so nervous systems. This is what we're going to jump into next. I love that you asked that question. And there's a lot of people who I think talk about nervous system regulation in a very skimming the surface kind of way. I've taken this profound deep dive, and I feel like I had lived experience to understand what people were saying because of these experiences I've had, even from my teenage years. So, okay, so a healthy nervous system, which I would argue that most adults, at least in our culture, don't have, is supposed to go
Mm,
into an activated state when there's a genuine threat present, and then regulate and come out of it and feel genuinely calm when that threat is over. But if we're chronically busy, if we have unprocessed stuff, if we have like big events that have happened in the past, traumas that we haven't been able to work through in a healthy way, our system has this energy that gets trapped in it, and it makes it so that we might have this very exaggerated fight flight response, or even too much fight flight, or just being too busy all the time is going to perhaps make us go into like a freeze shutdown state, which is like a
mm.
numb. And a lot of high achievers, myself included,
Yes, yes.
stay in a mix of fight, flight, and freeze without actually coming out of it ever for sustained periods of
Mm.
time. I think I was in that for about a decade. It's called functional freeze. And in that
Wow.
nervous system state, we only really know how to attach our sense of self-worth to our productivity, because we're not like, we're so in our head, we're not really like in our body, we're not able to feel this robust sense of calm that we're designed to as humans. But once I sort of learned that, like I could remember what that felt like. So let's talk about tools, if that's okay. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
first
Give us the
thing is,
tools. Give us the goods,
okay,
ladies.
okay. So learning your own map. And I'm going to give you two
Mm.
names real quick of who I've learned this from, because there's a lot of information out there. But these two
Right.
folks, it's Irene Lyon. She has a lot of content on YouTube, and Justin Sunseri, who has a podcast called Stuck Not Broken. And I
Ooh.
just love that title because that was me. But our map. So understanding that when we genuinely feel good and grounded and in a rest digest state, our
Mm.
thoughts are naturally, I am enough, the
Mm.
world is okay, I can do this. We have thoughts that are like optimistic, and we can approach things from like a very centered place. When our body is chronically stuck in fight flight, our thoughts are, there's danger lurking. Something's out to get me, or someone is out, like there's this harm that we sense.
Yes.
And when we're in freeze shutdown, our thoughts are defeated. Our thoughts are lack of self-confidence, lack of enoughness. And then I think for as high achievers, when we're in that state, we go seek it elsewhere. We go seek it so I'm actually going to be part of a retreat next year with Krista Bigler, who hosts the Less Stress Life podcast. And it's for women who are highly successful, like check, check, check. But it's kind of like, well, what's next? There's maybe perhaps something missing at least some of the time. And I think we can get into this thing where we make our savings, our investments, or we externalize the sense of safety we think we're looking for as high achievers. But what we actually are lacking is nervous system regulation and the ability to access that place of safety. But when you can access the place of safety, you can actually create the abundance from a completely different energy, if that makes sense.
So good. So good. So I would love you to walk us through your experience. As a super busy dentist, a lot of our members are dentists, physicians, pharmacists. How did you personally detach from that cycle of overwork, the cycle of having your functional freeze, your nervous system just at the heightened level?
So the first step is just knowing that that exists. So this information that I'm
Yeah.
presenting right now, knowing that that exists is absolutely the first step. And just because you know something exists, it's like forgiveness. You can want to forgive someone, but you can't emotionally just jump into it. But just that awareness is the first step. The second step, so I made a list of tools that I love to share because they don't add to your to-do list, which I think is like these are things that I did. It's tiny
Yes,
things to do
please.
consistently that help
Make it
a
easy. Make it
ton.
easy for us, Dr. Jen. Make it easy. Let it
And
be easy.
I think there's this notion, especially in the social media world, that like it's all about self-care and taking the breaks. And like, yes, but that's not gonna regulate your nervous system at the end of the day. That's not getting into the somatic, but like body parts of your system that are trapped. Okay, so first tool, orienting.
Okay.
Some people also call this grounding, but this is going to sound so simple, it's going to sound boring, but it's powerful. When
Okay.
you feel relatively good, like right now, I feel calm and, alert but calm, close your eyes or keep them open.
Mm.
You focus on feeling the surface beneath your body. You might tune into one hand or foot and feel like a tingling or a live sensation. Tune into your breath without trying to change it. Might slowly scan the room for details and engage all of your senses. It's a really powerful tool to become present. And that's going to feel boring and not helpful for a while if you're like me. I had listened to this by Irene Lyon, and I was just like, I need to do something that this sounds like the right direction to head, so I'm going to practice this. But what happens is you build this muscle so that when a big triggering stressor happens, like in dentistry, it used to be things like trying to extract. I don't do extraction. I don't do any of the stuff that stresses me out anymore. I've honed how I am a dentist to make it more enjoyable. But like, you do an extraction that takes 3 times as long as you think it's going to take, and everyone's upset and everyone's behind, and you have to be the one who's like, put together. You can go back to your office and you can ground yourself so efficiently once you've built this muscle. So that's tool number 1. Any questions about that before I jump onto some other
No, this is good.
tools?
This is good. It
Okay.
sounds like it's something that is going to be a bit of an acquired taste.
Yes, it takes
You gotta
time.
build up to it, but you say just ground myself, understand what I'm feeling, focus on a hand or another hand. Just what am I doing? Am I connecting the
So for
dots?
context, I have alerts that go off in my phone twice a day that just say pause, breathe. And if I'm
Mhm.
somewhat idle, I literally just take maybe 10 seconds and just like become aware of my body.
Mm.
I mean, it's a very brief period of time. When I'm driving in my car, if I don't have a kid in the back seat, I don't have music on. The time that I'm in my
Mhm.
car, I'm tuning into my thoughts. I'm tuning into my body. I
Mm.
do this
Like
sort of
that.
grounding exercise a lot when I drive. I do it like, those times during the day when you're idle because you're waiting for your kid in the pickup line or you're waiting.
Mhm.
I do
Yes.
it then.
Yeah.
So this is not meant to become this, like I said, like to-do list thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a
I like
muscle.
that. I like the term tuning in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can
Okay.
connect with that for
Connect with
sure.
that.
So
Okay, good.
hopefully the listeners can find the term that connects with them
Yeah.
the most, but I like the tuning in. Yeah.
And the
That makes
body
sense.
keeps the score. I think the
Yes.
body also tells us what it needs. Well,
Yeah.
it's okay. So I'm going to share this because this is, I think, is really important. The most basic primary part of nervous system regulation is not all these fancy things. In fact, cold plunging and all these things can be very harmful
Okay,
without
can
some of
we
the,
hold on, hold
yeah.
on. If you're multitasking, come back to me. Can we bring that up for a moment? Because oftentimes in this world, I work with a lot of real estate investors, a lot of bro marketers, and everyone's like,
I never heard that
right?
term,
Did
but
you do
I
your
know
hard
what you
75 hard?
mean.
I was like, is there a 75 soft? Because I am that high achiever. I want to keep up with the Entrepreneur Joneses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like that doesn't really resonate with me. Like I got kids to take to school at 6:30. I'm not waking up to do a cold plunge at 4 in the morning. Like it just is out of alignment. So can we talk about this? What is it? Pop science stuff that's out there that's designed to make you feel like you're less than. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
So I think so this is one of those like nuanced things, right? Like
Hmm.
depending on who you are and where you are at in your journey. There's a man that I follow on social media. He his handle is the Tired Dad, and sobriety is a big thing. I love his account. He does cold plunges, and I suspect they are very healthy and grounding for him.
Yeah.
If you are someone who is in functional freeze and you're always on the go and your body and your tank is low, I suspect a cold plunge is going to make things worse and more dysregulated.
Mm.
So tuning into your body, like for you, since your gut feeling is that it makes you feel not enough, that's not the right path. But the most basic part of nervous system healing, getting this healthy regulation on board where we can be in a rest digest in the absence of a threat, is
Yeah.
eating when you're hungry, drinking when you're thirsty, and going to the bathroom when you need to. Like the most basic
Mm.
biological instincts, tuning into our body. Our body tells us what it needs, but if we're overriding because of our high achiever tendencies, we are dysregulating ourselves. And because that's putting us into that fight, flight,
Mm.
freeze, it's making us feel not enough. And then the cycle
Mm.
continues.
This is so you're telling me I should eat when I'm hungry. I shouldn't hold my you know what when I gotta go potty, and I should drink water when
Yes.
I'm thirsty.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
it. I love it. I can do that. I
Okay.
can actually implement that today.
Yes.
I can
Yes.
do that. I love that. Okay, so is that the second tool? So tuning in and then recognizing those basic needs?
I didn't have that written down, but yeah, let's go with that's number two because that's really relevant. Okay, another tool. This is about the self worth and productivity thing. And
Yes.
this is so, again, so simple, and this does not add to your to do list. There's a woman named Marissa Peer who I listened to a lot of content from when I got started in all of this myself, which was almost
Mhm.
10 years ago. And she is a celebrity hypnotherapist.
Oh.
And the most common root of most of the issues of her clients, she realized at some point, who are highly successful, famous, wealthy, high achieving in their own, it looks different in different industries, but in their own industry, very successful, is the belief that they're not enough. And this not enoughness, I believe, is at the core of most of our struggles as human beings, as long as our basic needs are met. So we all tend to have this void that we're trying to fill, whether we realize it or
Mm.
not. And she recommends writing I am enough everywhere. I have it as the wallpaper on my phone. You can't really see it right now because it's not lit up. I
Wow.
have it on my fridge. My kids and I say it together a lot. It's on my bathroom mirrors most of the time. Sometimes I have to clean them. Right now it's not because I need to write it again. But I have it in my, and it, I did this for the first time about a decade ago, and then I didn't do it for a while, and I started to do it again more recently because I'm talking about this now. And both times, because I am someone who tunes in to my thoughts and my body, it brought the volume, in air quotes, so to speak, of the mental chaos down. so much,
Mm.
because I think so much of our mental chaos is our own self doubt, our own subtle, like, oh, like with children, like the guilt that we can spin ourselves about with our kids is crazy. And like to some degree, I think we're wired that way. Maybe it's cultural, it's all these different things, but we can resolve that, or we can reduce it in a way where we just have so much more mental clarity. So yeah, the I am enough would be my next tool.
Okay, so Dr. Jen, as you probably noticed, I looked away from the camera for a minute. I just added it to my calendar every single day because I'm always staring at my calendar. I'm enough. Every day, I'm enough. I'm enough. I'm enough. I am going to take action because that's something small that we can do. And listeners, I don't want you to walk away from this episode thinking to yourself, okay, I'll do that someday or I'll figure that out someday. When we're provided actionable tips that do not break the bank from our time capacity or financial capacity, take action, take advantage of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that.
You're
Now
welcome.
on the real estate front, I'm gonna divert a little
Do
bit if you
it.
don't
Do
mind. Yeah,
it.
on the real estate front, a little birdie told me that you are mortgage free.
I am. I am. As of
And that was
two
by
and a
the age
half
of
years ago.
35.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the age
Yeah.
that is such an accomplishment,
Thank you.
becoming mortgage free by the age of 35. Can you share with the community what steps you took to make that happen and how has it changed your life?
Oh my gosh. So I'll obviously give a synopsis, but there is a blog post that I wrote that I'll probably go into more detail that I can, share the time we have today. And my blog is grounded-now.com. Groundednow.com with a hyphen. And so our journey, I feel like my journey with most things is equal parts practical, tactical, and inner. There's like an
Yeah,
external and an internal
yeah.
journey. The external part with that was because this was so intentional for Tim and I. So we met living in Richmond, Virginia. My family is all in upstate New York. We knew we wanted to stay in Virginia because we both struggle with wintertime. And for me, it was in a pretty profound way. So we sought out a place in Virginia that had a low cost of living. That was step number one. We live in a college town. So we thought, okay, if we ever get into the rentals game, this is going to be a great place to do it. There's 3 colleges here. But then we bought our home in 2015. So I know that we were in a different situation than people are today. But we bought a home well below our means. Because of where we live, it's a nice home. But like it has a 25-year-old kitchen. That just has not been, because of our other goals and priorities, like that's not yeah, we'll redo it someday. It's not that high on our priority list. So we bought this home below our means. We were able to start paying down debt on my income as a dentist, which at the time I was a 4-day a week, but it was longer days, which is full time. I was a full time dentist. He is a real estate agent and started from scratch in a town where we knew no one, in a country he's not from, and he's a bit introverted. So digital marketing and
Mm,
creating ads and funnels and understanding how to do email sequences and all of that became our path. And I
mm,
love that stuff. He does too. So together we've been able to figure a lot out. But it took about 3 years for him to be able to start paying himself. 2016
mm,
to 2019, he would have sales, but he would put it back into education or coaching or something he was learning. And then
mm.
in 2019, when he started to pay himself, we could put all of that toward a mortgage. And my blog article about this, it like tells a lot of that. We didn't increase our lifestyle that much from when we were students, but we still did the things we wanted to do. We just cut out all the things that weren't important to us, which is the inner work. Like so much, I think, of what we want to perhaps spend money on, if you're not tuning into what's authentic versus what is to fill a void or gain worth externally from, you could end up spending money on a lot of things that maybe weren't meaningful
Mm.
to you. Travel is meaningful to us.
Yes,
New cars aren't. New cars are meaningful to some people.
yes.
We just had to be very intentional about what those things were. And we just, at this point, my blog post says, so then there was like a few more years in between, and it's just kind of boring. And we just did the same things over. And it was like a lot of the time, this kind of achievement or accomplishment isn't all these like big, it's like small things consistently.
Yeah.
But yeah, we paid it off when our second son was 8 months old. So we had kids and we were still like able to, yeah, paid it off two years ago and at the beginning of August.
Oh my gosh, it's nothing short of amazing. Again, massive congratulations to you for that. So we're about to land this plane, guys. So I just want you to share everything, Dr. Jen. Is there anything else you would like to share with the community? And then we'll share how they can find you, all your links. We're going to add all of that to the show notes.
So yeah, this is actually something you asked a minute ago that I think I didn't circle back to, but you asked how my life has changed since we're debt
Yes.
free.
Yeah.
Once we became debt free, so I was already a 3 day a week dentist then. I have dropped back to 2 shorter days. I work Tuesday, Wednesday, 9 to 4 with a lunch break as a dentist. It's 12 clinical hours a week. And I didn't start this business until I had been doing that schedule for almost a year and a half. So I completely broke the cycle of tying my self-worth to my productivity. And this business has arisen from a place of not needing it to, or a place of it kind of flowing out of me, if you will. Like the writing that I do, it just kind of evolves out of me. I say
Mm,
that to encourage people that if, and paying off debt is not the journey for everybody, depending on how much people have and what their income capacity is, that might not be the best path for everybody. But there is an enormous psychological freedom on the other side
mm.
of debt.
I love it. I can totally relate. $500,000 in student loans, having that paid off gave me a lot of breathing room. So thank you,
Yes.
thank you, thank you for that.
Yes.
So, Dr. Jen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Can you share with the community how can they find you on social media? Do you have any links that we should be following up on? I do have your blog post link, which we'll share in the show notes, but feel free to share it as well.
Yeah, so yeah, the blog is grounded-now.com. I'm most active on Instagram, which is grounded with Jen with periods between all the words. And then I have started booking speaking engagements for next year. That also kind of arose out of nowhere. I have three that kind of just happened. One of them is I'm part of a retreat with Krista Bigler, who hosts the Less Stressed Life podcast. But we're hosting a retreat next fall for women who have kind of done all the things. We anticipate it being mostly women in medical professions and female entrepreneurs. Like, check, 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 but something's maybe still missing. Or you're just aware that there's a lack of ability to not just jump into the next, like to actually slow down. Instead, you're always jumping into the next thing. So our retreat is going to be about some of this self-worth stuff. And then she's also going to have a woman there that's talking about investing. So yeah, so my blog, my Instagram, speaking, and then I am a coach. And with both the speaking and the coaching, I keep it minimal. Like I'm very intentional about maintaining this lifestyle I've created. So if it sounds like I'm doing a lot of things, it's curated. But I take on about 2 to 3 clients at a time. There's a burnout recovery chronic stress track, and then there's a business coaching track that I have an emotional resilience component of, and they both follow the
Mm,
same framework. And I'll explain that real quick if that's okay with you.
yeah,
Because I think it's,
absolutely.
I've heard people say that they had some aha moments just from hearing this framework. But my framework that I came up with on my own, but it's grounded in nervous system science, is ground, heal, thrive. The
Mm,
ground stage is how to find an inner sense of safety and sturdiness. So it's a couple of sessions where we're going to go much more in depth of some of the tools I talk about today. And people, it is impossible, I would say, or perhaps nearly impossible to heal old patterns or
mm,
shift old beliefs if you can't get your body into a place where it feels safe. So first,
mm,
ground, heal is the recognizing old patterns, shifting old beliefs, and then the thrive. So for my burnout chronic stress clients, it's we spend most of our time in ground heal. And then thrive might be in the context of your existing life, how can we set better boundaries and say no? That's a whole, I could do a whole podcast recording with you on setting boundaries and saying no. That was a big step in my journey that we didn't get to today.
huge.
Um,
That's
how
huge.
to
Yeah.
how to not feel guilty once you do that, and all these other things.
Mm,
My business clients, we just spend the first session in an abbreviated version of the ground heal. And then the rest of it is the tactical practical. And I have been doing this for almost a decade through Tim's business. I actually did marketing consulting for other dentists a while ago, but I burnt out immediately because I didn't have the inner like restraint to know my own limits at the time. But how to set up social
mm,
media ads, how to grow on Instagram in 2024, how to monetize on Instagram, how to automate, how to have an email sequence. These are things that are very second nature to me. And for those folks, even though we're spending most of the time on the tactical practical, we can flip back into belief related things anytime because we have that established in the beginning. So yeah.
That's amazing. And sidebar, where did you learn how to do all of that? I know you said there was a period that you and your husband you were working on these skill sets, but it's not often we hear medical professionals diving head deep into digital marketing, marketing as a whole, and that's something they did not teach us in school, how
No,
to
no.
market their business.
So I love it. Even when I was a senior in dental school, I used to do a lot of hiking in the summertime, and I met this guy on the Appalachian Trail who was a dentist turned dental marketer. He's actually fairly well known, and through him, I ended up learning all, like he like put me in his programs for free because I was just like all like so I used to it wasn't podcasts at the time, it was like recorded phone calls, but I learned a lot. Um, and that excited me more than the clinical even back then. And
Oh,
then
okay.
with Tim's journey with real estate, we bought so many courses. The main one I did was, do you know, have you heard of the platform School, Skool?
Oh yeah,
Sam
100%.
Ovens, before he
Yes,
had School, had a website called consulting.com, and
yes.
I did their flagship program in like 2017.
Wow.
We went to a ClickFunnels conference.
What?
We've seen Tony Robbins twice. We just
Yeah,
we've
a
just kind
lot of
of,
development, which is
yeah,
awesome. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
So you're entrenched.
yeah. And I love it. Most people in the wellness space
Yeah.
don't love the marketing place.
Yeah.
I figured out like ways to do it where it's like I know exactly which website hosting thing is great for like a new like I have it whittled
Mhm.
down because I've tried so many different things that like I feel
Yeah.
like I have a way to help solo entrepreneurs have their
Yeah.
systems not be overwhelming, not have to necessarily find someone to have to do it for you, like stuff that you can set up once and then it just kind of works. You're creating some content and you're working with your clients, but there's not a lot of upkeep.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, who said we're not multi-talented healthcare professionals, right? We have so many talents, and I think that sometimes we put ourselves in that little hole that, we this is what you do. This is your little corner. So I love it. And it goes to show, like, if you were to look at what McKinsey is looking for in a health consultant, everything we learned up until this point and what we're doing in our career, it would easily be translatable to one of those health consultant roles, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, oh my gosh, so good. Dr. Jen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Your stories, your strategies are such a gift for our audience. For those of you listening, guys, follow Dr. Jen in all the places to learn more about her work. And I want you to remember that finding balance isn't just about working less or earning more, it's about aligning your life with what truly matters to you. So if you're ready to take the next step to financial freedom, time freedom through real estate, reach out to us, follow us here, reach out to Dr. Jen, and I will see you next time. Thank you all. Love you all to the moon. Bye bye for now.